Ready for a political thriller? We're diving into the Venezuelan election controversy. And trust me, this isn't your average news recap. We're talking about disputed results, international observers, and evidence that could rewrite everything we thought we knew.
What makes it so fascinating is the evidence itself. We're not just dealing with hearsay. We have actual election documents, almost like digital fingerprints, that tell a very compelling story.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We've got incumbent Nicolás Maduro and opposition leader Edmundo González going head-to-head, right?
Yeah.
The Venezuelan National Electoral Council, the CNE, declares Maduro the winner with 51% of the vote. Seems straightforward, right?
Well, that's where things get interesting. You see, this announcement, it came after midnight, which immediately raised a lot of eyebrows. Independent observers, even some who were initially sympathetic to Maduro, started questioning the transparency of the whole process.
And this is where those digital fingerprints you mentioned come into play, right? Our sources say election observers were meticulously collecting data throughout the entire election. What were they looking for?
Here's the key. Venezuelan elections use electronic voting machines, but there's a crucial safeguard. Paper trails. Think of it like a receipt for your vote. Thousands of witnesses from both sides were tasked with collecting these paper trail documents.
So it's not just about the electronic count, there's a paper record too. That's smart. What makes these documents so important?
Each document has a unique QR code, directly linking it to a specific polling station and the results from that station. It's like a digital fingerprint tied to each batch of votes.
Okay, so they're organized. So what? What does that achieve?
It means the electronic votes could be audited, not just by the government, but independently. A way to make sure everything lines up.
So we've got this potential mountain of data. Where does it go? Who analyzes it? That's where the Carter Center comes in, the organization known for its election monitoring work worldwide. What did they find?
The Carter Center knew this data was crucial. They managed to obtain the original vote tally sheets, the ones with those QR codes. And get this, the CNE, they refused to release this data.
Whoa, red flag. Refusing to release data just screams, we're hiding something, doesn't it?
Exactly. It just amplified those existing suspicions surrounding the election.
So the Carter Center gets this data. Does it match what the CNE was saying?
This is huge. Jenny Lincoln, a senior advisor to the Organization of American States, the OAS, stated that the data on these original documents, it did not match the results declared by the CNE. And remember, we're talking about original documents, not copies.
Wow, they had the originals and the numbers didn't match. What did the Carter Center's findings show then?
It was a bombshell. Not only did they have credible, independent verification that the results might be flawed, but their analysis. It confirmed what the opposition had been claiming. A landslide victory for González with 67% of the vote.
Hold on, 67%. Oh, that's a huge difference from the 51% announced by the CNE. So we have the official results, and then we have on-the-ground evidence pointing to a totally different outcome. What happened next? How did the international community react to this?
Well, a lot of countries were already hesitant to just accept Maduro as the winner, especially without seeing the raw data. But with the Carter Center's evidence, the pressure on Maduro is starting to build, and fast.
Yeah.
And this wasn't coming out of nowhere. Even before the election, there were already serious concerns about fairness and transparency.
You're right. And then there was that incident with the Argentinian president, Alberto Fernandez. He was invited to observe the election, but then Maduro withdrew the invitation after Fernandez suggested that Maduro should accept defeat if he lost. Talk about an omen.
Fernandez suggesting that, wow. With so much scrutiny on the election already, it makes you wonder why Maduro would pull the invitation like that.
Right. Almost like trying to control the narrative, but with the Carter Center's evidence out there, the pressure was on. What was González's move?
González didn't just complain, he took action. He issued a 10-point plan for a peaceful transition of power, really emphasizing respecting the will of the Venezuelan people as shown by those original vote tallies.
A 10-point plan. That's not just, I should be president. That sounds like a strategy. What were some of the key points?
Absolutely, it was strategic. First and foremost, respecting the Venezuelan people's sovereignty, as shown by those vote tallies with the QR codes, not just claiming victory, but really underscoring the importance of those verifiable results, and then a clear, peaceful transition with a timeline for Maduro to step down and González sworn in as the legitimate president.
A clear transfer of power. But it's not just about who sits in the big chair, right? What about everything else involved in running a country during a transition like that?
You got it. González's plan addressed those details too. He proposed setting up transitional commissions, ensuring that all those essential government functions would continue without interruption. Think economy, National security, social programs. It's about keeping the country running smoothly during what could be a really chaotic time.
Maintaining stability, preventing things from falling apart while the government changes hands, that's huge. Did it address, like, the people who supported Maduro? I imagine there would be some hesitation to just switch sides.
You're right, and González was smart about that. He called for guarantees for anyone who helps facilitate a peaceful transition, basically extending an olive branch, trying to avoid even more division and unrest.
Wow, so offering protection, ensuring things wouldn't be used against them later. A message of unity, especially after such a divisive election. It seems clear González was trying to bring the country together. What about outside observers? Any mention of them in the plan?
Definitely. Transparency and accountability were important to González. His plan included involving international observers and organizations to oversee this whole transition process. This would provide that external legitimacy, building confidence in the new government, both domestically and internationally.
Like saying, we've got nothing to hide, come and see for yourselves. Those international observers definitely add another layer of legitimacy. It becomes less about González himself and more about restoring faith in Venezuelan democracy.
Exactly. And it's a message that resonates with a lot of international actors. With that concrete evidence from the Carter Center, the pressure is really on Maduro to address these concerns, to engage in this dialogue about a potential transition.
It's not just Venezuelan politics anymore. It's about upholding these democratic principles on a global stage. But even if a transition of power is peaceful, it's rarely easy. What were some of the challenges, some of the obstacles that could have popped up?
One of the biggest hurdles, the military. They've always been deeply involved in Venezuelan politics. Their loyalty is going to be absolutely crucial for a smooth transition.
Right. If the military sides with Maduro or refuses to recognize González, it could throw the entire country into chaos.
Absolutely. Another challenge is just the deeply polarized political climate. Years of political strife and economic hardship, they've created such deep divisions within Venezuelan society. And bridging those divides, that's not going to be easy.
Even with all the evidence and a good plan, it takes time, effort, and compromise to heal those wounds and really create that sense of unity.
Right. And let's not forget about those economic challenges facing Venezuela: hyperinflation, shortages of basic goods, a crippled infrastructure. All of those things require immediate attention from any new government.
So on top of securing a peaceful transition of power, González is also inheriting this whole set of really complex economic problems that need immediate attention. That's a lot.
A lot. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of this complex geopolitical landscape. Venezuela's relationships with other countries, especially regional powers and those global players, are going to heavily influence what happens in the country's future.
It's like this political chess game on a global scale where every move has these huge consequences for the Venezuelan people.
Exactly. And, in the middle of all of this political maneuvering, all this international pressure, it's the Venezuelan people who are the most impacted.
They're their voices, their votes, their hopes for a better future. And speaking of voices, our deep dive, it uncovered some really fascinating firsthand accounts from people who experienced this election firsthand. It's easy to get caught up in all the politics, the international relations side of things, but at the heart of it, this is about people's lives. Hearing those firsthand experiences really hits home.
It really does. These firsthand accounts, they add a whole other dimension to how we understand the election and everything that came after.
So what are people saying? What was it like for them on the ground leading up to the election?
A lot of people talked about this sense of hope, this determination, despite years of hardship, of political turmoil.
Yeah.
There was this belief that this election, it could be different, that their votes, they could actually lead to change.
That's incredible that even after everything, they haven't given up on democracy.
It really speaks to their resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see it, those long lines at polling stations. People waiting patiently, sometimes for hours, just to cast their ballots.
Those images are powerful, a real testament to how much they wanted their voices to be heard.
Absolutely. But we also heard accounts of irregularities, voter intimidation at some polling stations, some voters feeling pressured, to vote a certain way, while others faced obstacles even casting their ballots.
That's really disheartening. Not surprising, given everything else we've talked about, but still disheartening.
Exactly. And then those concerns, they just kept growing as the vote count dragged on and the official results were delayed. A lot of people started to feel like their votes weren't being counted fairly, that the system was rigged against them.
And then, when the CNE only declares Maduro the winner, it must have been a blow to so many Venezuelans who believed that they had voted for change.
You can imagine the disappointment, the anger, And that's when those protests erupted. People taking to the streets, demanding that their votes be respected, that the truth be brought to light.
It reminds you that democracy relies on people participating, staying vigilant, and being brave enough to stand up for what they believe in.
Without a doubt. What we see in Venezuela is the power of everyday people, their courage in the face of oppression, that unwavering belief in a better future.
So where do things go from here? What does the future hold for Venezuela?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Things are constantly changing, and the outcome is still so uncertain. The international community's response, especially from powerful countries in the region, is going to be a major factor in how this all plays out.
We've seen some countries quickly recognize Maduro's win, while others condemn the election as fraudulent, calling for new elections.
Exactly. And those divisions within the international community, they just make finding a peaceful resolution even harder.
It really is like watching this high-stakes game of chess unfold, and every move has these huge consequences for the Venezuelan people. It's a lot to process. So we've uncovered a story of contested results, digital fingerprints, and the unwavering spirit of the Venezuelan people. But as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with more questions than answers. Will this evidence be enough to force a change in power? Will the international community present a united front? And most importantly, will the Venezuelan people finally see their voices heard, their votes respected?
These are questions we'll continue grappling with as this situation develops.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain. The fight for democracy in Venezuela, it's far from over.
And it's a fight that deserves our attention, our empathy, and our unwavering support for the fundamental right of every Venezuelan to freely and fairly choose their leaders. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions, keep digging for the truth, and never underestimate the power of a single voice in the fight for a more just and democratic world.